This person is a seasoned mental health professional and licensed therapist who focuses on addiction and trauma processing, and is also a community organizer focused on healing, justice, and community safety. Y'all give it up for Trey Finch.
What's up, buddy? How you doing, man? All right.
Man.
Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. Outside of my little bio, I want to say, is there anything that you want? Yeah, there go your mic.
Oh, sorry. I thought we were using this one. They double mic'd me over here. Didn't tell me.
That's funny.
Pause.
Outside of the bio, is there a fun fact you would like to let the audience know about yourself?
I'm from Middle Tennessee. I was born and raised in Clarksville. I've lived in Nashville since I was 12. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've seen the changes from North Nashville all over Nashville.
Oh yeah. I remember when white people was afraid to walk around North Nashville.
Yeah.
Now they live here.
Trey, man, I'm gonna just go ahead and dive in, man. What are some common misconceptions about mental health that you like to dispel, or even just, how can we work to normalize conversations around mental wellness?
I think a big one that you often see, especially like amongst Black people, is that Black people don't participate in like therapy, or they don't pay attention to their mental wellness, which is not real. I'm a Black therapist who has a lot of therapist friends. I am friends with a lot of Black men who go to therapy, who have gone to therapy. And I think more so it's about access, that folks in our community don't always have access to the resources to get therapy, and also just the ways in which conditions, living in the capitalist society that we live in, the way that people are conditioned to focus on productivity and working and keep moving, and don't have the resources to access those things. So I think it's more so a conversation about like, how do we make sure that people have equitable access to resources, to mental health services, and that those are just as commonplace as like medical resources, because we know that like our mental health and overall well-being are directly connected to our physical wealth and physical well-being. So oftentimes when people are like have terminal illnesses or have long-term illnesses, they see a direct correlation to people's mental well-being and their success rates, their journey. So it's just like important to not only prioritize our like physical well-being, our ability to take care of ourselves financially, but we also have to continue to incorporate that component of our mental well-being. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that, because pre-pandemic times, I feel like you saw a lot of people in society, just like you said, be more so about productivity. Anything that they was dealing with, kind of like hold it inside and compress. Mm-hmm. But when the pandemic happened, you saw a lot of people kind of like sit still, actually deal with the mental things that they're going through, and then finally like moving forward with a lot of organizations, companies, they made sure that they prioritize around their workers, around individuals expressing about their mental health and things like that. Yeah. I was gonna say, is there like any recommendations on ways how people can like prioritize that or like tap into that more?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about intentionality. Like you mentioning the pandemic and the especially 2020, the beginning of COVID. One of the reasons I believe that we saw such a big, like a drastic change in people being more open about their well-being is because, number one, the world slowed down. And so people had no choice but to like pause and think about the experience that they were having. And some people chose to like communicate that. And I think that it like gave language to people who might not be able to talk about that. Like there's a bunch of amazing creators and organizers and therapists and people who have done like a great job in like transforming the conversation around mental well-being, and like there's always been this like stigma around like if you struggle with mental wellness, then there's this extreme version that we see when it comes to like people who are experiencing mental illness, when we all know that like there are experiences that we have that are very internal, and that you won't know unless you ask people, and so I think that prioritizing like the wellness of your community is like a very tangible thing that everyone can do. That so oftentimes when we see like the negative symptoms of mental health that are very overt, there were a lot of signs along the way that only the people that are closest in community with those people can see. And oftentimes we're taught to like live in this very like individualistic bubble where we don't consider people's mental health our business. And when I see my friend, my sister, my brother, exhibiting some sort of change in behavior, whether it's a change in a habit. You drinking a little more than I've ever seen you drink, bro. You okay?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we don't ask each other those questions enough because we want to keep the peace, or that ain't none of my business, but it is your business. And if you as a person who aren't close with that person, aren't like brave enough to say like, I've noticed some things have changed with you, then there's not, if you're not going to do that, there's not another person that's going to do that.
Man, you spoke a lot on community. You spoke a lot on people in your community being accountable to each other.
Yeah.
You spoke a lot about resources, people can know about with mental health.
Yeah.
I kind of want to touch a little bit more on the resources aspect. I feel like when it came to mental health, there's a stigma that, that there's an expense to get the best resources for mental health. Is there a way that you kind of tell people about, how people can actually get educated? And I know you mentioned about putting language to what people are feeling, but it's some of these resources that people don't know that are free and that are accessible in the community for people to tap into with the mental health. Can you kind of like touch more on that?
I don't want to plug nobody's place that they haven't given me permission to, but what I'll say about that is that there are a lot of resources. If you have insurance, there's a lot of resources for you to access mental health treatment services, behavioral health. Especially in Nashville, we're lucky because we live in a more, while there aren't enough, there are more in this area than there are in more rural areas in Tennessee. Mental health services are expensive, and that is one of the biggest barriers to people in low income communities accessing those. In fact, the people that need it the most can access the least a lot of times. And so there are programs in place that are trying to fill the gaps in those barriers. It's not done perfectly or well, in a lot of times, but people are working on those things. So I think you also just got to be not afraid to like ask questions. A good therapist is going to welcome you asking them questions, is going to welcome you making sure that y'all are a good fit, because they also want to make sure you're a good fit. And just talk to the people that that like maybe have some experience with that. But yeah, people can always talk to me. I'm happy to connect you to some resources.
Y'all hear that, guys? You got resources that y'all can connect to. Is there anything lastly you want to leave with the audience about just mental health, or things that people can know about moving forward and after this event?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we live in like a hyper hustle culture. Hustle culture is like the opposite of wellness to me. Like, people we are hyper focused on productivity, as I said earlier. We're hyper focused on, particularly as Black men, we are always judged by our works, like what we can do for people around us, not necessarily who we are. And that is not always intentional. It's just the way we've been socialized is about your worth is in what you produce. You know what I mean? And so I encourage folks to focus more on like the internal experience that they're having. You can still achieve your goals and be an ambitious person, and also take care of yourself personally. And the people that are around you should be supporting and encouraging you to do that as well. So that'd be one thing.
I appreciate all that you said, man. Thank you for your time. I know the audience appreciate everything that you said. Can everybody clap it up for Trey?
Thank you. Appreciate you.